What is going on, everybody? I'm Retro Bliss, and you're on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. For those of you who are watching over at Mike's Gaming Gala, it's being simulcast over there. Welcome, everybody. We have a hot topic to talk about tonight, and it's about the new Nintendo Switch 2. There are a lot of things to talk about, and so I'm not even going to remotely try to without bringing in the panel. So first, there's Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala.
Hello.
And Brian from BD Retro Mods, who are all regulars on the show. But tonight we have a very special guest. It's Jeff from Go Game Go. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Thanks
nice
for being on.
He's our new resident Switch expert.
Well, when Mike suggested that we do a show on the Switch 2, we were, my first thought was, okay, who are we going to have on? Because we usually have a guest of some type. And first name that Mike brought up was Jeff. And Jeff, if you've never been to the Go Game Go YouTube channel, you guys need to check it out. Jeff has a great show over there, and he does a lot of Switch games. And
yeah,
so,
it's all I do right now until Switch 2 comes out. If I get my hands on one.
Yes.
I don't even know where to start with this.
Something tells me this might be the first time in a long time that they're not going to fly off the shelves. So you'll probably be able to get one.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, and we're going to talk about why that may be. But I will tell you guys this right from the jump. All right. This is not a political channel. This is a gaming channel. So there are going to be some topics that we're going to talk about, which is okay. But we're not going to talk about why things are happening. We're just going to be talking about what's happening and how they could affect the Switch 2, okay? So, what do you guys, I don't know where to start with this because, it was estimated that it was going to be released at a $400 price point. And then it came out when it was initially announced at around the $450 mark.
Yep.
But now, what's happened?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I think like many of us, like you watched that Nintendo Direct where like they were showing off everything, and it was exciting. Like there was a lot of good stuff because if you guys remember last week, I said the Nintendo Switch is my ‑1 favorite console because of what it does and the type of games for it and everything else and what it did for the industry.
And to be fair, if there was, if I wasn't retro focused in my list, the Switch would probably be #1 or #2 on my list too. I absolutely adore the Switch.
Right. I mean, they did so much stuff right, and like that Nintendo Direct got you even more excited. Like, oh yeah, new Mario Kart game looks great. New features added to it. Awesome. New Donkey Kong game that looks like almost like like a pseudo sequel to Mario Odyssey. Very cool. And this a number of the games that they showed was very like on the horizon was great, and the upgrades, everything else. But then you noticed they didn't want to talk about price. They never once talked about price in that Direct. And a lot of the information they didn't really talk about. Like they just wanted to get you hyped, which I understand. They want to make money, they want to do sales, but you also have to be transparent with that part. And then later on after that, like hours later, when the stuff finally goes live online and stuff, all of a sudden you're seeing, like I think they did say the console price, the $450, $500, but or maybe not, I don't remember now. But either way, then all of a sudden you see the console prices, $450, $500, and then holy crap, $80 for a game, and it was just because Mario Kart World, if you get the physical, which that's a whole nother conversation. And
yeah, we'll get to that. Let's talk about the system first.
But I mean, that was just a little like, I don't know. That kind of hit me wrong, whenever I saw that, because the thing is, Nintendo historically has, depending on how for lack of another word right now, has been kind of consumer friendly when it's come to pricing, because they've never had the whole top of the line specs. Therefore, they could sell their console at a cheaper rate and make money off the console. One of the only ones that do that. Everyone else usually does the razor blade
Sells
theory.
at a loss. Can
You
I
know,
can I
yeah.
make one thing to that? I agree with Zen here. At least, like, just talk about the system right now. $450. Is it more than I want to spend on a Nintendo Switch 2? Sure, but I'd also like one for free. The PlayStation 5 Pro came out for $700. The Switch is still the consumer-friendly option. I guarantee you in the next couple of years, when PlayStation 6 comes out, it's going to be a $700-800 console.
Yeah, I was watching the direct with my son, and I was like, man, I hope it's 400. Hope it doesn't go past that. And as we're seeing, it's got HDR, it's got 120 frames per second, in some games, and
Which
that,
I chuckled when I saw the 120 frames per second, simply because third-party games aren't going to run at 125 frames per
No.
second.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of that too is if it's docked. Which again, that's the thing.
That will
about
help.
now.
that's all docked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And then 4K. I turned to my son and I said, this isn't going to be $400, is it? Yeah. So I was at that point, I was like, which, I don't want to pay $450, but I love the Switch. So obviously I want to get this. And then that along with the whole mouse control thing, it's like, I really want to play this game. And, so it's a one-time purchase. So, $450.
It's
All
funny. It's funny that you mentioned mouse control. Can we talk about that for a little bit? Why don't you share with it, just in case people in our chat have not seen what these Joy-Cons can do with the mouse control? What are you referring to with mouse control, Jeff?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Joy-Cons. I don't know if I have one. I don't have one here, but yeah, literally you take the Joy-Con and you put it on its side. So the stick is on the inside. You're using it with your thumb. And it comes with a little base, kind of like, the one for the Switch where you attach it. It's got the buttons. Except
Handles
this
on
one,
the side, right?
yeah, this one's got like little sliders. So you can literally take it and slide it back and forth or around. And it looks like a ton of fun. But of course, the whole thing is that, how does it work? Is it going to be really responsive? Because it needs to be like, pretty much 100% responsive. It can't be 80%.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. I usually don't play my Switch at a desk.
right.
So that was my only concern. Am I going to be doing this on my leg?
You're going to literally need like a TV table type thing or something.
Yeah.
Like you have some type of
That's
lap
probably using it in
desk.
front of my TV.
I mean, right. I mean, where it's just like when I'm playing the Switch, I'm sitting in my recliner. I don't have a desk right there per se to, hey, let's use mouse controls. And
so it'll really depend on how, because if you can use just the arm of your recliner, then that's fine.
right.
So when I watched the Nintendo Direct, my thought was, that's cool. I want to try it. It's going to be neat. And that's going to disappear from the controls of most games within 6 months.
Yeah.
That's my thought process, unless it's really responsive.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, I've been watching so many videos from the Nintendo with like the meetup things they had where they were playing it, and everyone seems to say that the mouse controls they're fantastic.
Okay.
Especially with Metroid Prime 4.
Mhm.
They were saying it was really, really good. So that got me really excited because, like I said, yeah, if it only works 80-85% of the time, it's not gonna
cut it.
do it. But I mean, this could change genres on the Switch. Real-time strategy, first-person shooters. As long as it works well, yeah, it could.
But I guess,
and could we get a keyboard attachment, and then we could play first-person shooters the way they're supposed to be?
Well, but that's where it comes to a good point, though, because like I'm not as upset over the pricing of the console. I mean, it is a little higher than what I expected, but in the grand scheme of it, like
it is cheaper. Adjusting for inflation, it is cheaper than an Atari was. It's cheaper than an NES was.
I mean, it is, but I mean, the thing is, though, is just like we said in a couple other podcasts, it's just, you have Steam Decks now. You have handheld PC gaming devices, from like Asus and others, where the issue is like the features are definitely better than the original Switch, but we also got to keep in mind the features that they were touting as being so great isn't brand new technology. I mean, the tricks and stuff that they're using to get the video quality and everything else has been there for about 4 years now. And nice, Bo. Man, we're not even 10 minutes in the show, man. But
this is the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast brought to you by Brian's Retro BD
yeah,
Retro.
Right. So with that said, it's just when I think about a Steam Deck, you can get what the OLED, which that's a whole nother point. They didn't give us an OLED screen. You know, this is just, you know, I mean, not saying it's going to be a bad screen, but when you think about how things have progressed, you had the original Switch, you had the Switch OLED. You would have thought we would have had an OLED screen. And
Mixed by JB here. Before you go too far down the Steam route, because I know that's your big thing, is that Steam has a product that is financially getting a lot closer to these and access to a whole pile of other stuff. Mixed by JB says, at what point does the game system matter less than the game itself? Most of these games are available on all the consoles. Yeah. That is the one flex point that Nintendo has.
It is
that its first-party games are only available on Nintendo.
So,
and that's
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's why, despite the fact, and we're going to get into game costs and all that, I think the first-party Nintendo games are going to make sure that this isn't a flop. Because otherwise, if this was like the PlayStation Portable 2 or whatever, and was the exact same thing, but it was coming from Sony, who comparably doesn't have the strong first party. It has some first party stuff and has some good first party stuff, but not stuff to make you think, okay, I'm not going to buy a Steam Deck instead. I think this could potentially be a flop with how it came out, when it's coming out, just with the whole economic environment here too. So that's the differentiator with Nintendo, unfortunately, and it pisses a lot of people off. I know it does.
Well, I have to say JB stands for Justin Barnhart. That's
that's your boy. He made a good point for
Did.
conversation.
They normally don't come on my show.
But again, though, but for every other game, you can play it on something else. I mean, at the end of the day, like they showcased Elden Ring. How long has Elden Ring been available on other things? And again, if you had a Steam Deck, you'll probably get a better experience on the Steam Deck with Elden Ring than what you're going to have on the Switch 2.
So
I would say, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would say Nintendo fans are a different breed. I mean, a lot of Nintendo fans have never played Elden Ring. It may have been out forever, but a lot of Nintendo fans just haven't. If that's what they have, Switch. So a lot of the stuff they showed that might be older stuff, it's all new to Nintendo,
potentially
new to the Switch too. And
the
other thing I'm going to play I mainly play all the AAA Nintendo titles. That's why I get a Switch or a Switch 2, because that's what I want to play. And then I start putting in some third-party stuff. But for the most part, I mean, Mario Kart, I'll be playing that probably playing it for years.
Yeah. So wait, Brian. I know your ire is up for this episode, and you're going to get your time. Here's my perspective on it. If I'm buying a Switch anyway for Mario Kart, for Zelda, for whatever first-party games that I know that I want, and I know that I want to play with my kids or play with people, friends, then I already have the system. So these third-party games that I could get anywhere else, why would I get them somewhere else? I now have this system that I was going to get anyway. And that's why the Nintendo Switch, I have a PlayStation 5, I have an Xbox Series X. 95% of my gaming is on the Switch, just because I like that format best. And even though the graphics aren't as good, even if it's a third-party game, I'm going to get it for the Switch because that's the one I like playing.
Yeah, I have a PS4 and an Xbox Series S, and I never got to PS5.
And to be clear, I am what many would consider a Nintendo fanboy. I've been a Nintendo guy my entire life. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But if I'm getting a Switch anyway, I don't mind buying the third-party games. Yeah. Now, if they are cheaper on another console that I have, then I won't buy them on the Switch.
Oh, and they'll probably be cheaper. but but that's the thing to keep in mind, though, because like we say about being a success or a failure, because again, for many folks, probably even watching it, huge Nintendo fans, that base, no matter what, is going to buy a Switch. Like there's no question. Like at the end of the day, if you're a diehard Mario Kart fan, diehard regular Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, Zelda, Metroid, you're gonna buy a Nintendo Switch at the end of the day. You might not be happy with everything, but you're still gonna do it. But as we've seen with Nintendo consoles, that group of people's not enough to keep it a successful console. Because when you look at the history of Nintendo,
We'll
again,
get to that. Oh, it's all cloud-based now.
yeah, but but I mean, you think about the history. Obviously, the regular Nintendo, huge success. Super Nintendo, huge success. Nintendo 64 was kind of an I mean, I think it did okay, but it did not do nearly as well as its predecessors. And then you had
The GameCube.
It was a mediocre. Like again, good stuff on it, but in the whole grand scheme, it was mediocre. And compared to the competition, the Wii blew it out of the park, and then they royally screwed up with the Wii U, and then we got the Switch,
which blew it out of the park.
Blew it out of the park again, and I feel like we're almost to a Wii U all over again. Like you didn't win the first time.
So I don't think this is going to be so a big problem with the Wii U. I think the Wii U had probably the most lost potential of any Nintendo system. There was so much potential in the Wii U. I actually really liked the Wii U, but the marketing campaign for the first two years it was out, people thought it was just an add-on to the Wii. I think honestly, based on it hasn't even come out yet. But my guess is that the Switch 2 is going to be more like a Nintendo 64 or a GameCube. It's not going to crap the bed, but it's not going to knock it out of the park by any stretch. I don't believe.
Yeah, it's not going to be a Wii U, but I don't see how it could sell the same as the Switch just because of price alone.
Oh, not it. Well, and also because the Switch was innovative. This has some innovations to it, but it's not like radically different from what they did before.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks a lot better. I mean, there's so much more going on, but again, with the price, $450 versus $300.
Yep. Although that 300 adjusting for inflation, I was talking to Phil at the start, is about $390 now. So the Switch 2 was $60 in comparison, $60 more expensive.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Phil.
I don't have a Switch. I'm the only one here that doesn't. All right. I've been wanting to get one, and you can find them on Facebook Marketplace fairly cheap, and I'm just waiting for that day. But I really don't know a lot about the Switch or the Switch 2 as far as like, are they compatible with each other? How's that work?
Yeah,
well,
it's backwards compatible. There's a list of games right now that either don't start or do start, but not all the way. And I'm sure, there's a lot of them are the arcade archive games, which is really strange. But so I assume a lot of that will be fixed. Yeah, so there is backwards compatibility. It's not going to be 100%, but it'll be
the game cards. The game cards or game keys are the same size, but that does give me. Why don't actually, Brian? Why don't you talk about what the media is for this? We can start moving into like the game cards, how that works, and then we can comment on that because for the last 5 years, physical media has kind of been a joke. And now it is like they're not even pretending anymore.
So the and I say this as a joke because they're about the same thing in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. So the Nintendo Amico cartridges are no.
I think I'm the only one smiling when he said that.
Yeah, but no. No, so the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges are the same exact size and look of an original Switch cartridge, except they are red to distinguish them from the original parts. But they are just
Candy coated for children.
yeah, but they are ultimately key cards, meaning that there is no game at all on the cartridge. That it's literally just you insert it, it sees the code, and then it'll download it from online.
So
And
question-
And then when you play the game, you have to have the
you got to have it in, because again, it's a constant key that's going to register.
All right, it's a key, but when you buy a Switch, I'm assuming that you have to register it like you would an Xbox Series X or whatever. If you put that key code in under your name, would you be able to buy or sell a game that you've already purchased with that, just having that key code?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
That
Okay.
key basically it unlocks the game. So if you sell that, that game will still be on your console taking up space, but you can't play it without that key.
Yeah.
And
That's
if
why
you
you
sell
got-
it to somebody, they can put it in and they'll download it to their system and they'll be able to play the game.
Yeah, the
So
key card
that's
things are
positive.
they're kind of the key card ones are like some kind of a mix between the physical, like you buy Mario Kart World, that's just a regular cartridge. It's the full game's on the cartridge. Then you got digital only, and the key card is just like right in between where you're downloading the whole game, but you can sell it, you can give it to somebody, but at some point 15 20 years down the line, of course you're not gonna be able to download
There'll
it,
be
so
nothing to be able to download.
the last person that has it can still play it. But
Now, the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope. So obviously all of Nintendo's first party games are going to be like this. I imagine the majority of third party games are going to be like this. But one of the things that I loved about the Nintendo Switch was that a whole bunch of indie games got physical releases. And the fact that this still, like, obviously that card slot reads info, because there are Nintendo Switch games, original Nintendo Switch games, that the whole game is on the card and it needs to play from the card. So if it can read from the card, that opens the possibility that the Switch 2 is still capable of playing physical media if a third-party developer or something like that wants to actually make a game and put it on the card.
But I don't know if that's fully clear yet, though, because the issue is, like, I know at least everything that's been announced so far is all using the key card approach. Because even the Bravely
Mario Kart's a regular cartridge. And
No.
Donkey Kong's- yeah, it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I'm almost positive those were just key cards.
No, those are they're combined into three. There's three different ones. There's regular cartridges, the key card ones, and then just digital only. But yeah, they're the Nintendo first party ones. I don't think I've seen a key card on the first party ones.
No? Okay.
I mean, there might be, but I mean, Mario Kart World is definitely a cartridge.
And the
I'm
game's
pretty sure
actually on
Donkey
the
Kong
card.
Bonanza is as well, and Metroid Prime 4 is cartridge.
So that gives me hope that there's still a point to at least some of the physical media.
Well, there's
Because Nintendo does not have a good history of keeping their stores open after a console.
now one
leaves
thing
priority.
with the indie games is kind of interesting. I saw a rumor that originally the Switch had. Let me see here. The Switch had. Let me pull it up. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32 gigabyte cards
Mhm.
that developers could buy and put their game on. What I heard someone mentioning is that now there's only two choices: a 64-bit or 64 gig, and then something smaller. They weren't sure what. But I did notice Bravely Default, that's an 11 gig game, is on a key card. So does it stop at 8 gig? And then they couldn't fit it on there, so they had to do a key card. Because if you're not anywhere close to 64 gig, you're not paying that. Because I heard that those cards are going to cost like $16 for the developers.
Gotcha.
So if you've got a small game, an indie game, you're not going to pay the 16 gig. You're going to have to either fit it onto that small cartridge, whatever it is. They haven't announced. I don't know if it's 1, 2, 4, 8, somewhere around there. But other than that, they'll be digital only because, like you're saying, we had so many great games. I mean, Downfall, a $3 game. You can buy that in a cartridge on the Switch. I mean, obviously, but that's probably small enough you could fit on whatever the new small version is.
Yes, yeah.
But like Cyberpunk, they're putting it on the 64 gig cart. So, good for them. No key card there. They're that's pretty impressive. They could have cheaped out, I guess, but they didn't.
I would imagine that the vast majority of games, though, are going to be at least some form of a key card, or put it in and it's got like a 2-hour download that you still have to do, like most modern consoles still do.
Poe.
You know what? That's not that dirty.
No, it's a chuckle. That's okay.
But at the end of the day, though, I mean, that's still going to be a problem at some point. I mean, even with our regular Switches, it's going to be a problem at some point.
It's going to be a problem with, honestly, every console from the last 2 generations. Right. Yeah. And Nintendo, like I said, has a reputation of really not being great with keeping those stores open. Now, I think the Switch store itself, like the current one, is going to stay open for a long time because it's just going to morph into the Switch 2 store.
Now, see, I was I was watching that's debatable because they think it's going to be totally dependent on the sales of the Switch 2. If the Switch 2 doesn't sell very well, Nintendo may be so inclined to not support the regular Switch as long as they might have with good sales.
Well, here's the thing. You wouldn't support the regular Switch as in you would not make for like a lot of these games that are coming out, not Mario Kart World, but some of them it's coming out for the Switch 2 and there's a Switch version. You just stop releasing the Switch version. But that store, like you're saying that they're just going to like brick everybody's old Switch, they would lose. First of all, I'd like to say it is not outside of the realms of something that Nintendo would do because Nintendo is Nintendo's own worst enemy, and always has been. Forget Sony, forget Sega. Nintendo has always been Nintendo's own worst enemy. But the amount of backlash that would come from that if they shut it down simply to, I was like, well, no, we just want you to. Oh, yeah.
See, this is the problem with modern gaming in general.
Works.
It doesn't matter what platform you're playing it on unless it's something like Steam. If it's an Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo, at some point you got to know when you buy that game, whether it's a digital download, key cards, DVD, or, a Blu-ray, whatever, it is at some point it's not going to be supported anymore. And you can't just, in many of these games, at least with my Xbox Series X, you can't just load it up. You got to download. So if they're not going to, and like I said, it doesn't matter what platform, at some point they are going to stop.
Well, I guess that's where I'm just frustrated with.
Yeah.
I mean, not just with all modern, which is why, again, I look more at the Steam front because of the fact that at the end of the day, if we got to go digital, I'd rather go digital. I'm tired of the fake physical, pretty much what I call it at this point. When you get an
collectibles,
Xbox,
like the Amico cards.
Yeah, it looks good in the collection, but it serves no purpose.
It serves no purpose. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if I still got to go download whatever, I might as well be full blown digital. And especially, I mean, in a sense of Steam, they're our best success right now. I mean, you can still go back and purchase games from 20 plus years ago and use them. And
Steam's most reliable digital storefront
by far. So
and it's been around forever.
Exactly. And it's just, that's because to your point, Phil, that's where I got frustrated with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Cause I'm just like, why am I going to buy the disc if all it is literally a key to download the game? And even with Nintendo Switch, I was getting frustrated because it's like, great, I buy this game and day one, I still got like a 20 gig download to it, which isn't the end of the world. However, when that time comes, and we know it's going to come because it's Nintendo, what's going to happen to all my physical cards? Because
they look good on a shelf.
They'll be
And
dust
that's it.
collectors.
Right.
That's all they'll do.
right. So
Yeah, I'm with TJ Farnes here. I totally agree. Discs shouldn't
Yes.
just be dongles. And the fact of the matter is, like you were talking, it's like, oh, eventually, and even with Steam, like this is my problem with digital in general. Now, Steam is a very stable platform, and it has been for a long time, and I presume it will be for a long time. But there was a point in time where we thought this would never end, and it did. But the fact that it's physical means I can plug this into my system now and play it the same way I did in 1983. That is not going to be the case with digital. Full stop. Any digital platform. 100 years from now, provided the chip doesn't rot, but 100 years from now, I can still play this. 100 years from now, I sincerely doubt you'll be able to play even Steam. So
That's
I mean, there's
well, in
that's-
100 years, it won't matter for us.
in 100, it won't matter for us.
Yeah, but think about
But my poor grandkids.
right. I have a granddaughter. Right, her very first game was Air Sea Battle on the 2600. You know, and luckily, well, for I guess if you want to call it luck for her, Grandpa's got the new 7800 plus and 2600 plus, and you can throw them on there and not have to worry about the old hardware failing for a while, and she can still continue to play these games like you said, Mike, and unless they just happen to all of a sudden disintegrate, which is kind of unlikely if you take care of them. But yeah, I mean, you want this brings up a whole new topic that we should probably do a podcast on, is video game history and how, it is. I think that'd be a good topic to talk about. But 100 years from now, we won't be here, but the history will be there. What's video game going to be like then? So that's a topic for another day. Now, if you guys don't mind, we're about halfway through our normal hour. And I cannot believe that I'm the one that may be bringing this up. Okay. However, there's a president of a Nintendo for the UK. Dave Bowser is Doug Bowser, I'm sorry, is the president of the Nintendo of America. And then,
Great name for a Nintendo employee.
Yeah, it is. Now, when these prices were initially announced, something hadn't happened yet, but now something has happened, and it's called tariffs.
The absolute worst timing. We're going to launch on April 2nd, and then tariffs are going to be announced on April 2nd. I can imagine everybody at Nintendo was just, God damn it.
So Doug Bowser is saying that the initial prices that were announced, that first of all, the pre-orders for right now have stopped in America
and Canada.
You know what? And Canada.
And because Nintendo wants to assess their financial situation and how the tariffs are going to affect their bottom line, and their bottom line is our bottom line, because no company is going to absorb a tariff. They're going to pass that cost on to the consumer regardless.
The reality is, it isn't even just about importing into the United States. There's a tariff there. Every company in the world is going to be assessing their supply chains, finding out where tariffs are going to apply to those supply chains, and adjust their pricing accordingly.
Right.
And so for the Switch 2, even if there's, a little latch here that is manufactured in the United States that is now going to be 10% more or whatever, that's going to, or even, the company that makes the latches gets their fuel from the United States, or like they have it. Every company in the world's going to be doing that. It's going to be reassess. They're going to have to reassess. Hopefully, it doesn't impact things much. But yes, it was terrific timing.
Well, and the thing is, and we'll see what it does, but it could do a lot, because the thing is at least Nintendo, I believe, a lot of the Nintendo Switch assembling is occurring in Vietnam, and
Yep.
that's one of the highest. Well, now not anymore. I think now the second highest that's being said, because it keeps changing every day. But don't hold me to this. But like, I mean, there's talks of a 46% tariff on stuff coming from Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's exactly what they said. That's
that
the number
hurts,
I've heard
you
too.
know. And then I saw today that you know, because who knows, it changes every second. But
It's a roller coaster for sure.
I mean, China might be 104% tariffs come tomorrow, you know, and it's just like, holy crap. I mean, when you have those type of tariffs, and then I mean that it's going to get passed on, that at that point, I don't know how realistic this device becomes, at least in the United States, you know, when you start seeing tariffs like that.
You know, there's an interesting thing going on. I had heard there was 300,000 to 400,000 Switch 2s in the U.S. already. And Doug Bowser, he didn't say a number, but he did say we do have a number of Switch 2s already here. So I'm really curious what they're going to do with that. I mean, if they have 300,000 to 400,000,
It's gold.
I mean, are they going to go ahead and if they do have to raise the price, are they going to stick it on those? Because that, I mean, what do you do if you have 400,000 sitting here that you didn't have to pay that price?
They're going to make
they're
going to make a new eBay account and scalp them themselves.
Honestly, they're going to sell them for whatever the price ends up being. They're not going to discount those.
I think you'd have to, because that'd be a weird thing.
Right.
It would. It's like it's $449 for the first, 200,000 sold, and then it's going to be $500.
And it's not just the consoles, it's going to be the games too.
Well, and let's talk about the games, because the game prices were announced. Brian, you've got some rage. You want to talk about that?
Did he say rage?
Well,
I don't think that word has ever been used on the Retro Bliss Rewind
I was
podcast.
Gonna say, again, so with the game, which I at least, again, I don't like it. I at least feel a little better with the fact that I guess some of the Switch 2 games will have some physical to them. Because again, and this is part of the problem, right? Because Nintendo has done a horrible job getting the information out. So you have stuff going all over the place. And
currently the oldest, like the grandpa of video game companies in the current market, you'd think by now they'd understand how to give a message.
Correct.
Yeah, what's weird is for the first 3 or 4 days, it was being reported that Mario Kart World was $90 in the US. It's like,
right.
Nintendo never said that.
No,
they said
didn't.
80 right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, and why they didn't come right straight out and say, nope, that's all wrong.
And that's the problem. Like, they needed to be clear about it, because even with the whole key card thing, they weren't clear on that, saying some of the games will have the stuff on the cart. Others, I mean, everything was taken as everything's a key card for the Switch 2. And I mean, I'm glad to hear that that's not going to be the case, though. Like we were saying, though, I mean, we still have a problem with that, not having full physical. But no, back to what you were saying, though. So the pricing of the games, and this one is, I know, a contentious point for a lot of folks, is that Nintendo didn't do themselves any favors with their response to it. Was ultimately they're going to be looking at what they call variable pricing. So they're going to decide, that's the very political way of saying, we're going to make them price what we want because we can. And at the end of the day, I have a problem with that, because again, I understand that we haven't seen inflation in video games for a long time. Like, if you go back to Super Nintendo era.
Well, no, you don't even have to go back. You could go back even further. Phil, how much does Todd Fry owe you?
Well, just for Pac-Man 2600, but the 2600, the year it came out, was $199. Adjusted for inflation, that's around $900 now. $900.
Mm-hmm.
So that
but
does
we're talking
put things
about the game.
in perspective.
Talking about the game. The games.
Yeah, but the game was $40 back then, and I think it was I think adjusted for inflation was like 170, something around that.
Mm-hmm.
So Todd, if you're watching,
Yeah, so
hit me
if
up,
you
man,
spent
because we
if
got
you
to talk.
spent $170 for Pac-Man, personally, I don't have a problem paying $90 for Mario Kart. But
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that so here's, and again, we've been very fortunate that we haven't seen like inflation as we have on other things, but part of that too, and the justification is because we cut manuals. So that was the beginning of it, right? Like we kept prices how they were because we got rid of instruction manuals. So that was the cost saving measure to help, even that out. Then we went to digital fronts because again, if I don't have to pay, for a physical production, that helps cut some of the costs. But what we're seeing though is now we have this much higher cost, and it doesn't matter if it's a physical, depending, or digital copy. And just their response of pretty much saying, the variable pricing of it. Nice. I have a problem with that. I mean, because I don't know that the industry's hurting in any way, shape, or form with the pricing structure. And the thing is, I think the industry has been successful because of the fact that the cost to get in has not been jumped very highly with inflation. And I just think when you start hitting this $80 amount now, and then especially when it's not a
there is a mental
physical
block.
game, there's a mental block at that point, because I know I've seen it all over Facebook. People show the old Toys R Us or KB ads about, well, look how much a Super Nintendo game cost back when, it's like on certain ones. It's like, yeah, but at least you own the whole game. You got the whole physical game,
Yep.
and there was issues back then with memory being, a time where it got astronomically expensive and they had no choice but to raise some of that stuff. Plus Toys R Us and KB always had their additional like tax because they were always more expensive.
My personal opinion has always been like, okay, if somebody wants to buy the collectible and have a key, okay, you can have something to put on your shelf. Honestly, for some games, I would probably still even be that guy. I like to have some things on the shelves. Not that I have any extra shelf space to put them on right now. But I have always been of the opinion that digital should be like 50% the price. It shouldn't be like a $10 off thing. If you're going to be selling the physical at $80, that digital should be $40.
Well, and the
Because
thing
there
is
no like the network, like you're using that online space anyway. If somebody puts in a key and downloads it, that online space is there. It's paid for. You have to provide it anyway. You have nothing to physically produce. It should be half the price.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that might just be my old man mentality. But
the thing is, it hasn't been, and that was the whole thing, because digital was going to be so much cheaper, and it hasn't. And they've used that argument of, well, because of rising costs, and for whatever reason they feel they got to spend AAA movie budgets on video games anymore. That's why we've had to have that. But
prices,
Metal Torso's
just to respond to Metal Torso, prices have been creeping up in the recent years.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not entirely sure why everyone is so shocked with this. It is an extra increase, especially for Nintendo games. But
so let me ask Jeff. Jeff, your channel is almost exclusively Nintendo Switch right now, at least until you get the Switch 2, and that things could change, obviously. But what's your thought on all this as far as like the pricing's concerned? I mean, how far are you willing to go to buy a game? Because Mike and I, we do a bunch of different consoles. You're more hyper focused.
Well,
So
I've got hundreds of Switch games. Physically, I will not have hundreds of Switch 2 physical games, only because, well, there'll probably be less of them, but I'm going to go more digital for this time around. I just because, some are going to be real cards, some are key cards. I just, at some point, man, I'm 56. I'm running out of room in my house. can't keep buying cartridges, physical stuff. I'm literally don't have a whole lot of room anymore. But as far as like the pricing of these games, I mean, who wants to pay $80? But I get why they're doing it. And the variable pricing thing is interesting. I know everyone hates it, but like MLB's been doing that for over a decade. If you go to a Cardinals game, you're going to pay way more to see the Yankees than you're going to see the Pirates play. And that's just something they've been doing for years and years. So my guess is that 80 is going to be, since Mario Kart is their number one franchise.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be their limit. I mean, maybe they'll go something higher for Zelda, but my guess is most of their games are going to be 70. As you see with like Donkey Kong Bonanza that was announced, that's going to be 70. But with Mario Kart, I mean, I think what they're doing is they're like, you know what? People are going to pay this because everyone loves Mario Kart. So why not get an extra $10 out of them?
Well,
I don't want to pay it, but that's the reasoning behind it. Definitely.
It absolutely is. And like I said, it's because they know they can, and they did it with us already with Tears of the Kingdom. That was the first test, right? That was as people were like, oh my God, it's a $70 Switch game when every other Switch game has been 60. And we did it. So this is Nintendo like, well, they did it for that. We'll go ahead and do it here and make more money. And just like the whole tour game, the whole tech demo game they want you to pay for. I mean, now granted, it's not going to be overly expensive, but again, why could that not have just been a pack-in? It's a tech demo at the end of the day.
I think I know why. They haven't said it, but it's a $10 game. I know everybody wants it packed in. I mean, I do too.
Yeah, the welcome tour 100% should be a pack-in.
It should.
But here's the problem with that from Nintendo's point. That game as a pack-in isn't going to sell one unit. Not one single person is going to buy a Switch 2 for that game. Because it's a bunch of mini games is what it is.
Yep.
It's more than a manual. It's a bunch of mini games. But it's not going to sell one unit. So they can sell for $10. Maybe they sell $250,000, maybe they sell $500,000 of it.
That's true.
And they make what, $5 million or something off of it?
You got to milk it.
That's what they're doing. Like I said, that little game's not going to help them sell anything, but they can sell it in the eShop.
I guess I go back to the PlayStation 5 having Astro's Playroom in it, which is really the same concept. Yeah. It was a tech demo for the PS5.
Well, same with what was it? Wii Sports or Wii Party or Wii Play rather. It was the same with Nintendo Land. It's a little tech demo. Some good stuff on it. I have zero doubt, but it's still a tech demo. Just quickly to reply to Cody here. I am of the personal opinion that regardless of whatever store you buy it from, even Steam, if you just have digital, it is a rental. It's a rental for as long as that store is online.
You only have a license to play it.
With physical, you have the game and you have it forever. If this game, like I said, if the chip on here dies, then okay, you don't have the game anymore. But you physically own the game. The problem is that really for the last 2 generations, the amount of actual physical media on physical media is incredibly questionable. So at a certain point, it's all digital.
Yeah, I think, like I said, my biggest issue, I think, is just the money grab. The fact that because they feel they can. And the thing is like people are not going to boycott Mario Kart World. I mean, that's the reason they're going to buy a Switch 2 on day one. So it's just frustrating though, because again, I understand there needs to be increases at times and stuff, and I think everyone understood that when we did start to see the $70 price, when it came to new releases with like Xbox and PlayStation 5 and so forth, that people were like, okay, we can do that. But now we're going up again. And I'm not saying it's not fully justified, but it still doesn't mean we got to like it.
Can we? Go ahead. I want to ask a question when you finish. Go ahead.
But now I kind of lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
But it's just no, you're good. It's just that's what happens.
I fell off my train of thought.
That's what happens when we're all getting old. It's the way they did it. Like I think most people would have been like, if Nintendo would have came out and said, hey, we got to charge $80 for Mario Kart, and here is why. Here is why. I think people would be a little more understanding with it. Just like whenever PlayStation did this and Xbox did the $70 games, they explained why they needed to go to that next step. Because, you know, prior to that, we had $60 for as long as I can remember, right? And
amen, Salvatore. Nintendo needs to get the memo. Analog triggers on your damn Pro controllers. Come on.
Right. But to that point, though, I mean, again, I'm assuming original controllers and all that from the original Switch will be compatible. However, you know, that whole cost to get entry, like if you are having to buy another set of the new Joy-Cons, I mean, I believe that's $90. If you, not that you need it, but if you really want that camera add-on that they want, you're looking at a minimum of another $50. And again, this is as long as tariffs does not affect any of this pricing. You know, I think the new Pro controller is another $80. So, you know, when you start putting this all up, I mean, by the time you buy a game or two and those extra peripherals, you might be $1,000 when it's all said and done.
I'm gonna have to buy it in stages. I'm gonna have to buy the bundle all by itself, and then I'll have to go back maybe a month later and get the Pro controller, and then maybe the camera. But real quick, I had a question for you guys on pricing. Do you think people will be up in arms if the new Grand Theft Auto is $100, like it's being rumored? Because they're going to, if they're charging that, they're doing it obviously because it's so popular and they know they can.
Yeah.
But do you think their fan base will be?
Honestly, though, that might be
that might anyway.
Again, I think the general consensus, and I think we'll all agree on, is kind of what you just said, Mike. If you're a diehard fan, they don't care. They're going to buy it no matter what.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day.
Well, I wouldn't say no matter what. If they came out and said the Switch 2 is $2,000, I'm not buying it.
Well, I couldn't buy it.
If they said it was $1,000, I wouldn't buy it. But I mean, especially from my perspective, so I'm Canadian, for those in the chat who do not know. You guys are talking about prices, about how expensive they are, and I keep having to do the conversion in my head because you're saying $80. Like, games are up here are all $80 for a new game, no matter what the system. Because the Canadian dollar is obviously lower than the American dollar. You guys are saying, oh, it's going to be $90 for the Joy-Cons. Joy-Cons here are already $90.
Well, but that's apples and oranges, though.
And that's a very good point, Poe. I mean, what you just said, because that is how it used to be, right? I mean, for many of us, like, you would only get a couple games a year, you know, and part of that was because of how much they cost at that time. And that's what I mean. We've been fortunate that inflation hasn't hit gaming nearly like other things, and therefore it gave more opportunities to get more games and to take more risks on buying games that maybe you wouldn't have bought because of the fact that, well, you know, that $50 NES game, which is now the equivalent of probably over $100, was like, man, I like, which one do I pick? Because if I pick the wrong one, I'm stuck for a year, you know? And, but yeah, I that's exactly it. And but to your question, I think that diehard Grand Theft Auto fan is going to, and I'm sure they'll pay $200 because there'll be some stupid, crazy special edition that they're just going to have with it too.
I bet they'll play it because they'll play it for years, kind of like Mario Kart World. I mean,
that's the other thing I was going to say.
Lifespan of the Switch 2, with 7-8 years, whatever it is.
I forget who it was, but somebody, I think it actually might have been DJ Farnes, which I'm not going to post his comment. He's got a good comment, but it's bordering on political, so I'm not going to bring it up. But he was talking, I think it was him. He was talking about how he went to go see Minecraft, the movie, and it was like $75. And you get 2.5 hours of entertainment out of that, paying whatever price it is. Let's say it's $100 for GTA. If you're going to get hundreds of hours of entertainment out of that, is that really a bad deal? Despite the fact that, yes, we have been conditioned to accept games at a certain price, if you're going to get literally hundreds upon hundreds of hours. Like when I bought Fallout 4, I bought the pimped out Pip-Boy edition where I could open it up. I had a Pip-Boy and put my phone in it and everything. I have, like, my game save was like at 24 days of gameplay. I got my money's worth out of every penny of that game, and I have zero regrets.
But
well, I was just going to say, and I honestly, of all the games that I saw, there is one game that I know, maybe not quite that much, but I will get my absolute money's worth, even if they charge $200 for it. And that is Mario Kart World, with the open world that you can drive around, with the endurance races, as well as the traditional cups. I know I'm going to get my money's worth out of that.
And
now,
we don't
not
even know
everybody
everything
likes
about
Mario
that.
Kart.
We don't even know everything about that. There's a direct.
Yeah,
on
there's going to be
17th,
another one.
so there's more.
Yeah.
There's probably some big stuff coming still with that game.
But, you know, again, though, does that constitute variable pricing? Like, just because there might be more hours into it, does it justify it? And and I think that's the issue everyone's having with the current structure of how they
all it justifies is how I feel about the money that I put in.
Right.
If I personally get the value out of it, I can still be upset that they're price gouging, which honestly, I think on the games they are. But I can justify paying that price gouge amount because I know the amount of entertainment I'm getting out of it.
So can I bring something up real quick, because we're getting kind of close to the end. Although we can keep talking if we want to. One thing that Mike mentioned, the 120 frames per second that they've claimed that some games may run at, but we haven't really talked much about the specs of this thing. So, Jeff, do you know what the specs are of the new compared to the old off the top of your head? I've got some here, but I wanted to see if you...
Well, I think the new screen, and from what people have said, they said the new screen, even though it's LCD, they said it's really good. I mean, it's like, extremely good. The handheld mode, from 720, it's up to 1080 now.
Yeah.
And of course, docked, it's going to be up to 4K. 4K at 60 frames per second. And the new screen's going to be 120 hertz too, which is nice. The old screen,
the
6.2.
The dock has
a
nice
7.9.
fan in it too.
Yeah.
They really pointed out that fan in the Nintendo Direct.
That's right.
What were you saying about the screen size, Jeff? Sorry.
It's 7.9 compared to the old one of 6.2.
Okay.
So it's pretty big. And the Joy-Cons, of course, they've been... I know people were all up in arms because no Hall effect, but Nintendo did say they've built it from the ground up. Whether that solves the drift or not, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out a few months after it starts, or after we get it. And I did hear today that they've redone the D-pad on the Pro Controller, which is good, because that D-pad on the Pro Controller for Switch is not very good. I did not like it much. It's going to have a 256 gig on board instead of 32.
I think that is woefully below what it needs to be in this current generation.
Yeah, but again, they want you to buy.
Of course, they want you to buy, and you have to buy the EX micro SD cards.
Ones,
yeah, the Express ones.
Yeah. But Nintendo doesn't make anything off of that, though.
The ones that are Nintendo branded, they do.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone buys those. Those are always way more expensive.
Very few people buy those.
I mean, a terabyte, it's going to be like $200. So
yeah,
you're going to slap a mushroom on it. I'm not paying $300.
But even back in like the Xbox One days and the PS4 days, I was saying, like, these should come stock with a terabyte on them, even at that point in time.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's a cost saving measure. I mean, because at the end of the day, they already knew when they were going to announce the 450/500
that it would disappoint people.
That it was going to disappoint people. So if they would have added that extra money, I mean, just look at the Steam Decks, like the different, because when you look at the different options, it's literally the storage on it is the main thing. And I think they just knew, like, man, if we truly put a terabyte in this thing, we're going to have to charge $600 and $650, and I think
okay.
You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, this was their way of, well, since we're going the key card route, with it, we know we don't have a choice but to up the memory. We can't stick with 32 gig. So,
Can you
so
imagine? You get half a game on there.
I mean, yeah, that'd be ridiculous. But so that's why they did it. But
Yeah.
and again, it's a hard. The whole thing it's just I think it's more frustration. Like I said, they did a horrible job getting the information out for this thing. Like I think they were so afraid of telling people about it that then them by not saying anything or hiding the information on their website, just
Well,
caused
and that also fueled things like the Mario Kart's going to be $90 and
right,
stuff like that.
right. And again, like I said, if they would have said, "Hey, our titles are going to be like regular ones, where part of the game or so most of the game will be on the cart," cool. But like I said, and I'm glad I learned that now, because like I said, I was under the understanding that no physical thing, period, was on the Switch 2.
You guys should have
cartridge.
seen him in our Discord. He was all, "Nintendo sucks. What the hell, man?"
Well, like
Forget
I
this.
said, I'm over the fake physical. I mean, like,
I agree.
Let's rip the freaking Band-Aid off and just be digital already. Like, if we can't have true physical, let's just get it over with. And again, that's why I like Steam so much, because of that. And all the Steam sales that seem to happen more times than not. And I just, yeah, it's just going to be interesting what happens here. Because like I said, as long as tariffs don't really kill it, yeah, I'm real curious to see how sales do go. Because I don't know that it's going to be that immediate grab.
I think even in the current economic environment, even if there was, like, let's say things were still going the way they were going and there was no tariffs, like it was just, yeah, it's going to be 450 and pre-order. I think in the current economic environment, sales would still be tepid. I think you'll see a big burst at the start, because some of us, some people are diehard Nintendo, they got to get it day one. I'll be completely honest. The only consoles that I ever get, usually day one or at least week one, are the Nintendo ones. They're the ones that excite me the most. And I am a bit of a Nintendo fanboy, and I'm not ashamed of that. It's similar with the Atari products, right? Like I pre-ordered my 2600 plus. I pre-ordered my 7800 plus. And so, anyhow, you'll see that initial, and then how tepid the sales are after that. We might see a price drop next year, possibly. I think a lot of people will be waiting for a price drop or some kind of bundle that adds value to it.
But again, if they do that though, what I see happening is Nintendo's going to cut back their support for the original Switch, because they want people to spend money on the new system.
I mean, everyone does that.
Happens all the time.
I mean, that happens no matter what. I mean,
but again, it could be a situation where they do string along the Switch, because the Switch will help subsidize low Switch 2 sales. They could shoot themselves in the foot if they just like, okay, we're not doing anything for the Switch anymore. You never know. I am not a professional executive businessman.
Right.
So,
well, and the Metal Torsos thing, because that one right there, I mean, see, and this is where the confusion is. Because like I said, when I started the show talking and I got corrected, I'm like, these are going to be downloads, but it sounds like they're putting them on the cart. So like that 25 gigs is supposedly the size of the game on the cart. Same with the Donkey Kong. That's supposedly 11 gigs on the cart. So in theory, you really shouldn't have to download anything to the system unless there is some type of a update type deal.
Well, you win for those two. I think he's talking if you buy those digitally.
Okay.
I guess.
I gotcha. So yeah,
that's what I'm doing. I'll probably get Mario Kart World, and I'll probably get Donkey Kong Bonanza the next month, and then I don't know if I'll get that on cart or not. I don't know. I'll definitely want Mario Kart.
Viddy's got a good point. Like my brother held off on a Switch until Mario Kart came out. Or no, not Mario. He held off on the Switch until I think the new Smash Brothers came out. Like, or was some system, and you waited. Mario Kart World is 1000% going to be a system seller.
Oh, without a
It
doubt.
does look, and once the Nintendo Direct for that comes out, I think it may affect a lot of people's decision as to whether or not they're buying early or not, because from what I've seen so far, it looks awesome, and I am a huge fan of the Mario Kart series. And if they show, and it still looks just as awesome, like I was on the fence as to whether or not I'd be a day one buy. Primarily because of cost and, again, the economic environment right now. But if that Mario Kart continues to look as awesome as it currently looks, I might have to be. I want to play that with my kids.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wow, I think it's been a great show, man. Very informative, and still a lot of questions that linger for all of us regarding this. But
Phil, can we talk about Cannabis Kid's comment right there at the very end?
Yep. There we go.
That game looks interesting. I did like a little prediction show, and I said, they're going to have at some point a game using two mouse controls. And right off the bat, that was one of the first things they announced. It's interesting. It's a wheelchair basketball game.
Yeah.
You control your wheels. You can
with the two
Joy-Cons
in mouse mode. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you want to you wheel around, you can kind of do a half circle. You just lift the mouse up, your right mouse, and flick it. Yeah, it looks like it's a lot of fun. I've heard there's more to it than what they've shown, which is cool because
I would hope so. It looked pretty basic in the Direct, but it was a good kind of idea. It was like
I think it's pretty neat.
Rocket League without the rockets.
Rocket League, yeah.
So, because I know, like, I've kind of given my thing on it. I think Jeff has said he's basically a day one buy.
As long as unless it goes up a couple $100, man. If it stays where it's at, definitely. If it goes up a little bit, probably still definitely. But I don't know what the magic number is for me to pull out.
Well, Nintendo doesn't know right now. Yeah, they
should know very soon. I would imagine they'll know very soon. Brian, what are your thoughts on the Switch 2?
I mean, again, I'm a Nintendo fan. It's just I just don't like how they presented the whole thing, and I think that's going to hurt them in the long run by them not getting it out there correctly. And I think, is it a day one for me?
They almost need a Nintendo Direct to clarify the Nintendo Direct.
Correct. And I mean, is it a day one for me? It might be. It might be. But if it increases because of tariffs, no, it will not be a day one for me at all. Like, again, that price point, which I don't have an issue with per se, that really is my max when it comes to the Switch. Like, I don't like, if I'm going to spend more than $500, I might as well get the latest Lenovo device that has SteamOS on it or something. I mean, if it starts getting to that point. But the other end of it is obviously, with the controllers I make. I mean, at the end of the day, I technically need one to see, does my current controller that I make for the Switch work on the Switch too? So, I mean, I need one for that purpose at the end of the day. But like I said, that 500, because if I'm getting it, I'm going to get the bundle. So, I mean, that's what it's going to be. But
do you guys want to hear what the Canadian price for the bundle is?
Let's hear it.
$699.99.
What is that in US dollars?
Phil, why don't you talk about what you think about the Switch 2 so far while I look this up?
Well, I don't know if I've been wanting to get a Switch, original Switch, so I don't know if the games are backward compatible, are all of them backward compatible?
Not at the
There's-
moment, but
Yeah.
that's the goal.
That's the goal. Okay.
Most of them
So-
are, I think, right off the bat, but there's still probably a few dozen that are not.
Mm-hmm.
Then it may be worth it to me to not buy a Nintendo Switch 1 and just get the 2. At least it's going to be supported a little bit longer, right? And so if the games are compatible with it, then it stands to reason that maybe Nintendo will support whatever games, however old they may be, as long as they play on the current system. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm on the fence, but I got to slam on the brakes right now. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do much of anything.
Well, you keep
Anytime
saying that,
real
and then you
soon.
keep buying new consoles.
No,
That's why.
I literally have been trying. My conversations with Brian started weeks ago.
So Vidi here. No, I was talking about Canadian dollars. That's the bundled price. Canadian dollar is a little higher than the American dollar, but not, or sorry, the Australian dollar, not by a heck of a lot. So $699.99 in Canadian is about $491 US. So that's the bundled price.
So you're getting a deal. That's $8 cheaper than us.
There you go.
You can buy 2.
It doesn't feel like it when you see that $699.99.
But I will say though, like even if I do get one right away, I'm not as excited for it as I was when I first saw the direct, and it's just because of the structure of how they're going. Like, because one thing we didn't talk about, and I know we're getting over here, but like
okay.
the upgrades, like they were talking about how certain games are getting upgrades, and you can buy the Switch 2 enhanced versions. But then again, when you see those dollar amounts, like, is it really worth rebuying Kirby for $80? Just to have the Switch 2 cart version, or if it's even on the cart, maybe it's a download code, who knows? But but again, or they want you to pay the $20 or more to upgrade it digitally of your original Switch game. So, I mean, just things like that where I don't.
And there's a few other, like the Pro controllers now have the button underneath, the 2 buttons underneath. They have an audio jack. They have this whole, and they spent a lot of time on it. It'll make some people very happy. I'm sure Mr. Poststyle playing with his kids online would love this feature, but the game chat stuff where you can see the cameras and all that, it's stuff that everybody else has already done to some point.
Been doing for like
Discord,
15 years,
or at least Discord has been. But there's, they're pushing, they're taking online more seriously. Even on the Switch, I find online to be kind of an afterthought in most situations. So I mean, there's that. There's plenty of things to potentially like about the Switch 2. I think the launch time was abysmal.
Yeah.
Like if they had pushed this and been like a November launch and maybe had their Nintendo Direct in the summer sometime after all this roller coaster, hopefully will have calmed down a little bit, or at least be a little more solid, because it's so volatile right now. But it's it's a bad timing, some bad news, focus on digital, which I don't like. I don't like the whole key thing.
Yeah. The whole having to pay to use the C button, they're wrapping it into their Switch Online service. I mean, they're going to have it as a free beta or whatever for a while, but then ultimately you have to have Switch Online to be able to use it, which, again, agree with or not, that's no different than like Xbox Live and the PlayStation.
Which the C button is for chatting.
It's for chatting. It's literally a chat button.
Yeah.
But Nintendo had to make it fancy and just call it a C button.
Well,
yeah. And see, Mr. Poststyle's ahead of the curve. He already uses Snapchat for video calls when they play Switch. But I think for a lot of people, they're going to wait until the price comes down.
Yeah.
Which, if they have tepid sales, probably will happen
next
year.
Well, maybe day one buyers can get a ambassadors
Just like the
thing.
3DS. But yeah, like I said, if I get it, I'm going to be
Chances
a
are
lot.
very good, Viddy. Chances are very good, especially if you're using the Joy-Cons. With the Pro controller, it's right in the middle, so not so much.
Yeah. But I do find myself being a lot more selective though. If I do have one of these, it's going to be a lot more selective because like I have a ton of Nintendo Switch games because again I loved it and it just but the Switch 2 will most likely just be a first party console for me because anything else that they showed like the Final Fantasy 7, part 1 of it and Elden Ring, I can play those for cheaper on other formats. And but again, you can't get Mario Kart anywhere else. You can't get Donkey Kong anywhere else. You can't get Metroid Prime anywhere else. So
that honestly, those first party IPs
Yeah.
are what's going to keep Nintendo afloat in every generation, unless they completely royally mess up.
Right. So.
All right. Well, guys, with that, I think we're going to call it a night. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for asking me.
We appreciate your insight. For those of you who don't know, Jeff has a channel called Go Game Go. You guys need to check it out, especially if you like the Nintendo Switch. That's what he does exclusively. And when he gets the new Switch 2, you'll see even more. So,
we're wrapping up just as Fat Boy rated us. guys, go watch back. This was a great episode.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. And Jeff, don't forget, hang tight. But we'll see you guys next week because next week we're going to be talking about the Atari 5200, and we're going to have Steve. And I'm trying to remember what his handle was. I can't remember. I knew it right off the bat. Anyway, Steve Everett. You guys need to check it out. He is our 5200, my 5200 expert. So we're going to have him on. So with that, you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind.